During the last development update, we found out that we were going to be getting 2 live streams this month, our monthly development update and a Q&A with Steven himself. Steven sat down to talk to a few of the content creators in the Ashes of Creation community, Richie SH, Chibi Bree, and Submerg. We got a lot of questions answered and I couldn't be happier with where we are in this period. Hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell as we ask Steven Sharif some questions about Ashes of Creation. Steven was asked what zones will be in Alpha 2. He responded and said zones will continuously be integrated into Alpha 2, but we will see zones such as the Riverlands, the Badlands, Tundra, ice areas, forest areas, and more. They will be launching at a 60 through 70% completion rate, which I think is perfect because as players of Alpha 2, once the game actually releases, we want new things to look forward to. It's important to me to be able to see the progress of what I'm playing because I don't want to have access to Alpha 2 and once the game releases, it's the same exact experience that I had during Alpha. Don't want that. That'll feel like a waste of time to me personally. Now, I know it gets memed on a ton and I promise I'm not trying to add on to the fire, but a couple of people that I know that play New World pre-launch said they experienced the same thing, right? Now this can be avoided by not allowing your player base access to everything before launch. A question for the Underrealm fans. Did the Underrealm increase with the updated map and does the Underrealm have water and use of boats? Unfortunately, the Underrealm didn't increase dramatically with the updated map, but there will be lakes and rivers, we just won't be able to use boats. I see this as a good thing because I think it's good to have all of the naval content set in one space. Having different bodies of water in the Underrealm is pretty cool too. I'm sure there's mobs, items, and a ton of things that we won't see in places that's not set in the Underrealm. How long will Alpha 2 run for? And how do you plan to adapt to player burnout? We didn't get a complete answer to the first part of that question, which isn't a big surprise because we can't really expect them to know that yet. We do know now though that Alpha 2 won't be content complete, which is great because like I said before, you don't want the game to release and have the entirety of it at your fingertips. Intrepid does plan to release content to keep players that suffer from burnout interested and engaged. Steven did emphasize though that this isn't a traditional alpha. In today's society, we see a lot of alphas that aren't necessarily alphas. They're just different ways to play the game early. I understand alphas and betas can take a ton of time to come out. Sometimes alphas more than betas, but when these games come out, there isn't much added to the final product. Ashes of Creation won't be this way though, and that's something that we as a community have to prepare for. The game's not gonna launch and we're gonna have everything ready to go right away. How do you go about bringing old school systems into today's society? This probably was my favorite answer from Steven, and the answer is simple: risk versus reward. He stated that you can lose and have fun compared to winning all the time and just getting something rather than actually working for it and being happy to work towards something. I do think the masses will have a tough time appreciating Ashes of Creation, and that's okay. It's not for the masses, it's for a certain group of people. And again, that's okay. The participation trophies hasn't ruined gaming, but it has tarnished it. Everyone that's interested in Ashes of Creation is probably over the age of 25, for the most part. So you understand what it was like to grow up and not get everything handed to you. Now, I understand that this doesn't apply to everyone in the current generation, but this is your fault. The character creator is going to be updated in Milestone 5. It'll be in a usable, testable, and playable state for Alpha 2. I understand it is Alpha, but I do think this is something that needs to be 100% polished. Again, I know it's Alpha, but people spend hours creating their characters. And this kind of goes along with one of the things that last in the first impression state. Your character is a huge part of your MMO experience. So if it's not working properly, it's going to reflect poorly on them. I remember last year, for the character creator update, there was a lot of pressure because character creators are a huge thing. I know we're supposed to be getting access to this sooner than later, so I'm really looking forward to this. Are you willing to change instance dungeons based on player feedback? Steven came right out and said, the vision of the game is not up for discussion. Love that my man stood his ground. Do I believe that I'm 100% going to love open world raiding, dungeons? Not a chance. But I understand what the game is before I go into it. If you're looking for that type of content, you'll have to look elsewhere because this isn't that. But I do think it is something that players can learn to grow and appreciate. But that is given the circumstances of the situation. But we'll have to wait and see. Now, I've never experienced something like this before, so I'm sure I'll get trolled, ganked, PK'd, all that stuff. But again, I understand what I'm getting into before I get into it. How will big story arcs that change the server affect expansions? Steven used an example that if a person dies, we don't necessarily need to know how they died, just that they died. We talked about story arcs and how one person's story might not be the same for 100 others. As long as everything is written and produced properly, I don't see this being an issue for them at all, because now the story is pretty much open into how you experienced it before you move on to the next expansion. Do you plan on having all classes available for Alpha 2 before adding secondary classes? There will be a limited number of secondary classes or augments that are put out before all of the base classes are added in. I like this because once again, we're not getting everything all at once, especially with classes and augments. So to me, it makes sense to send them out periodically. This will also give players time to mess around with a ton of secondary classes without feeling pressure that they need to hurry up and move on to the next one. Do you want to update to Unreal Engine 5.2? Yes, they do, and they might even wait to 5.3. I think what we're seeing here is that Intrepid is always going to want to update, especially if it benefits the game, but with updates come time, so they might just be waiting to the right time to do that. If they update every time, it's going to continue to get pushed back, so in this sense, it makes sense to wait until you have everything you need and then make that final jump. Are there systems you want to add? There are things that Steven and the team at Intrepid have talked about adding, but they've chalked it up to post-launch / saving it for the expansion bucket. Hear me out. Say Ashes of Creation drops and it's fire. Think about all the ideas that we didn't get. Now imagine that in an expansion. It'll make for a bigger and better game. Would you sell or resell your Ashes of Creation themed tabletop RPG module for other DMs to use? Steven would love to release this. I think, honestly, this is probably one of the coolest announcements that we got today. Maybe it's because I just got into Dungeons and Dragons, so I just want to keep consuming that type of content. Hopefully it runs smoothly, so I can buy a copy. We need more Q&A streams. We got so much information today, it's insane. I wasn't expecting to get this much. I thought Steven was gonna come on, make some jokes, talk about Alpha 2, dip out. No, we get an updated character creator, an update gaming engine, a possible Ashes of Creation tabletop role-playing game. A very fun surprise for the community. The creators asked some great questions as well. I'm happy, I hope you're happy. If you could ask Steven any questions about Ashes of Creation, what would you ask him? Please let me know in the comment section below. If you haven't created an Ashes of Creation account yet, feel free to use my link in the description. If you're looking for a community to join while you wait for Ashes of Creation, hop on in my Discord. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and Twitch to stay up to date with me. I also stream the live monthly updates, so come and chill. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.